Hello, everybody. So we're going to do this in French, but I'm so happy to see in English. Sorry, thanks. It's late. It's been a long day.
No.
It's been a long day. Yeah, we're going to do this in English today, but it's great to have so many of you here. The room that we have for this roundtable today is 3 times bigger than the one we had last year, and so to see so many of you continue to come and attend is great. Last year we had our first Women in Tech roundtable and track at an AWS Paris Summit. It was a great success, and we saw in the feedback from the sessions that you wanted more. So this year we're going to do 2 roundtables. The first one is this one on how to use the imposter syndrome as a strength to develop our careers. And then the next one will be on high diversity improves customer experience and improves offerings by companies. And so I'm extremely happy to be here today. Very happy for Mai-Lan to be here with me. We started this together with Sarah, who I don't see anymore, last year. And so thanks to everyone that is participating with us. Sarah is welcoming our guests in the back. So today I'm joined by a number of panelists that I'm super happy to be here with, and I'll let them introduce themselves. I think it will be better than for me to do it. But maybe a few words on the imposter syndrome. So, for example, I feel like I'm an imposter here today, and obviously, you see why. It's obviously, I think, a topic that is very dear to my heart and one that has been dear to my heart for a long time now. But it's sometimes also difficult to think about things that you're not necessarily affected by. So the imposter syndrome is not a woman or a man thing. It can apply to many different people. It's a syndrome that often happens when you start at Amazon and at AWS in particular. I definitely had it. And just to give you 30 seconds about why I felt the imposter syndrome, when I joined AWS, I thought we did S3 and compute. And I thought we did infrastructure, and then I realized we had 200 other services, and I had no idea what they were. And I realized I didn't understand anything about cloud. So in the first 3 months, I was happy. In the second three, I was worried. And then after that, thanks to people like Mai-Lan who explained to me, it got better. So anyway, the imposter syndrome is real. And obviously, we have a great panel today that is going to share with us some of their experiences and practices that they've been able to put in place. And the idea is for us to learn and share with everybody. I think we'll go this way. Mai-Lan, if it's okay, we'll start with you. If you can give maybe a short introduction about yourself and also why you accepted to be part of this roundtable. So, and in your case, it's more than accept. We encouraged me to do it together.
Yeah, welcome everyone. Bienvenue. My name is Mai-Lan Tomsen Bukovec. I'm a vice president of technology in AWS. I have been working on cloud services for 14 years now. I joined in 2010, which was a long time ago. And I run product as well as technology. I run services like Amazon S3, SQS, SNS, Amazon CloudWatch. There's a bit of a list, so I'll just stop. And I am very happy to be here in France for multiple reasons. One is I am always so impressed with just the imagination and the grit of French companies in changing the world for either their customers or for supply chain or for whatever aspect their business really focuses on. So I love coming here to France. I come twice a year now. And Julien and I and Sarah thought that especially given the passion and really some of the talent, you have some of the talent here on the stage with us, of women in technology in France, how can we help support that at all career levels? And a lot of it is actually showing other women and other men, what does success look like for women in tech? Again, my fellow panelists are here to demonstrate that. And how can we share what has worked for us as we've come up through the early stages of our career to now, and really learn from each other. The last time, Julien, we had this, I learned a ton. We had a lot of fun on the panel, and I am sure it's going to be like that again.
Great. Well, thanks so much. Louise?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. I am Louise, and today I'm here because I believe the imposter syndrome is a major issue for the future of our competitivity, especially in the tech industry. So from my perspective, I crossed the road of tech after starting a career in mergers and acquisitions, which was not so logical, and not having an engineering background, actually, and never left it since. Today, I am the head of Institut Montaigne's digital program. And for those of you who are not familiar with Institut Montaigne, we are the leading French think tank dedicated to making public debate move forward. So our areas of interest include digital competitivity, economic challenges, social cohesions, international collaborations, and so on. And recently, I had the opportunity to work on a study on digital skills shortages. And today, I want to tell you more about some interesting parallels we can make between our findings and the imposter syndrome, and why this matters for the future of our economy.
Thank you so much. Catherine?
So, hello everyone. My name is Catherine Gestin. So I'm the Executive Vice President for Digital at Airbus. So Airbus is doing planes, helicopters, rockets, and stuff like that. Everything that is flying. A little bit like Louise, I was not supposed to do tech. So I have a business administration degree. And my road crossed with tech just right after the school when I joined Accenture. So, and it's now 33 years that I am doing technology. So imposter syndrome is something that I know very well because, again, not an engineered background. So sometimes you just ask yourself, okay, are you legitimate to ask questions on infrastructure, on cybersecurity, where you don't necessarily have all the technical background. But I think that if you are keen to learn and if you ask questions and if you have good people around you who are ready to teach, basically you make a lot of progress very rapidly and you can be successful in that career. I'm here today because the place of women in tech is close to my heart since probably 24 years. We started to work on that topic at Accenture in the early 2000s. There are a lot of studies that demonstrate that the more diverse your team is, the more performing it will be. So you need, if you really want to build a performing team, you need to have diversity, and gender diversity is one of that diversity. Then can be, of course, obviously national and ethnic and so on. But and especially in IT and in tech, where we are lacking so many talents, if you just have 50% of the population who don't want to go to tech, basically you are missing something, and you are missing 50% of the talent on the planet. So it's not a good place to start when you want to build that diversity. So that's the reason why I'm here today.
Thanks, Catherine. Yeah.
Yes, hi everybody. My name is Ea Shayou, and I work for a company called IDEMIA. And I'm in charge of our strategic alliances and working closely with AWS. So IDEMIA is specialized in biometrics. So basically we do everything to allow citizens to connect, travel, pay, identify in a secure way. And I am also engaged in what we call Women in IDEMIA, which is our women network that we started a couple of years ago. And the diversity topic and inclusion topic and the imposter syndrome that we're going to be talking about today is really something that is very close to my heart. I believe that it's extremely important that everybody is aware about this topic, just as the same way that we have to do something about it, obviously. So having this opportunity and getting this invitation from AWS is really awesome to be able to speak to you all about this today.
Well, thanks for being here. Yeah, and Valerie?
Hello, my name is Valérie de Corver. I am today in charge of Ariane 6 launcher system tests. What are these tests? They are the last test, the last verification test to make sure that the launcher on its launch pad is really ready to be launched and to perform the first flight, which we are all expecting very soon now. So I'm personally from a very engineering background. I've been working all my life on rocket and aero engines in France, in Germany, in Spain. And I have experienced myself this imposter syndrome, and I had to tackle it, I would say, to be able to take a higher position throughout my career. And therefore, as a manager today, I'm very attentive to my team spirit and to make sure that within my team I have the right level of diversity, because I'm absolutely positive that this is an asset for any project that you can launch or you can do. And this is why I was very pleased to have been invited by AWS to share this roundtable with all of you.
Well, thanks all of you for being here. I feel this is going to be a great conversation. And thanks for having accepted the invitation and feeling so passionate about it. Maybe Valerie, I'll start with you because I think you mentioned it, but in order to be able to address imposter syndrome, maybe we need to define it a little bit. And I'm sure we all have different definitions, so maybe we'll go in this order. And Valerie, if you don't mind starting.
No, I don't mind for sure. For me, feeling this imposter syndrome is having the impression that you have doubt that you have the right skills, the right competencies, you have the right experience to take a position and to rightfully perform within it. So it is something you have to identify. I think it's important that you identify it, but it must not be a blocker. You have to really work on it in order to be able to progress and perform in the future.
Great point. Yeah.
Yeah, so the imposter syndrome, as I said, it's everywhere and it's valid for everybody. And I think that you have a very female representation here on the panel today. But I think as we discussed with Julien when we were preparing also this panel and with Mai-Lan, is that this concerns everybody. And I think that's really what's important, is that everybody is aware of it and that you want to do something about it, whether you are a man or woman inside the company. It's for yourself, obviously, you have to work on this, but it's also for your teams. So I think it is present everywhere. It's present every day in what we do. We question ourselves, maybe some people more than others, but I also want to say that the imposter syndrome can also be looked at in a positive way, because I do believe that it forces us to think more about where do we find the right answers. It forces us to maybe ask more and listen to our teams, asking ourselves also the same questions so that we can take the right decisions and not move forward too quickly. So asking yourself, how can I do this better? Or am I in the right place? Or am I taking the right decision? It can actually be quite healthy.
I totally agree with you. And I think we'll go back to it a little bit later as how you can actually use it as a strength rather than a weakness. Catherine, any different opinions on imposter syndrome? Or?
No, I think that it has already been very well defined. I think it's just a feeling that when you are in a room, so you are the one that is not legitimate in the room, and you can feel that in many occasions. And it has, I don't think, anything to do with your gender, to be honest. I think that maybe it's, and I agree with you, AI is the most important that we can do as manager when you have experimented it is to really recognize when it happens to your teams, to be alert and to say, okay, oops, here we have somebody who is not talking in the room, who is not sharing information or sharing point of view. You probably have somebody who has that kind of syndrome. So you need to pick the person and to really make the person comfortable to expose what she has or he has to say, because otherwise you are missing something. So I think for me that's the most important, is really when you have experimented it, just make sure that when you look at your team, you identify the people who are feeling that way on specific topics. So,
Louise, I'm going to skip you just for a second, and thanks, Catherine, for that. Because I think, Louise, it will be very interesting to put the numbers back on what we've been talking also. But Mai-Lan, maybe just a word on imposter syndrome and what it means to you.
Well, I think our panelists have really described it so well from different angles. Let me just say this. Raise your hand, for those of you in the audience, if you have ever felt anything that you've just heard there, and you might have had a little imposter syndrome. All right. They say so?
Great point. So Louise, maybe to add to that, and on your point of view on imposter syndrome, and also some of the numbers you were sharing before.
Yes, absolutely. I totally agree with what has been said. Imposter syndrome is really about not feeling legitimate in a position. It's also about wrong representations. And in the tech industry, it is a real issue. Our misrepresentations in tech often come from preconceived ideas on what tech jobs are about. We think they're solitary, they're too technical, they're not social enough. And this creates wrong beliefs on what tech is really about, but also bad communication on the actual skill set you need to succeed in tech, which often creates an imposter syndrome. As a result, you have many talents that drop out from tech careers because they were away from the job market for a while by choice, or because they just didn't choose engineering studies from the start. And you are talking about numbers, notably in tech, only 20% of the positions are filled by women. And this figure has not evolved since 2012. So in our study, we called these perfectly qualified profiles hidden talents. And to me, this is really where the parallel between the imposter syndrome and digital skills shortages becomes obvious.
That is very interesting. So I think, Valerie, back to you now on maybe some of the things you've put in place, either for yourself or for your team, in how you've addressed imposter syndrome.
Yes, I try to take it in a positive way. I try.
Same as you.
As said by yes, indeed. And whenever I took a new position, therefore there were many unknowns. I started by listening to my colleagues, asking questions, trying to learn. And then I tried also to identify all the required competencies which went with this position. And then I try also take a bit of going back on myself and thinking, okay, within my career, through what I've accomplished, do I have these required competencies or not? And most of the time, I have to say that, yeah, once you've put things on the table, you find out that indeed you have, maybe probably not 100%, but at least 80%, and the 20% you don't have, at least you know which one you don't have, and you can work on it and progress and improve yourself. So I think this is quite important. Another thing which I did and I still do, and it's also true for my team, is to get feedback not only from my managers, which were always very helpful indeed, but also from my peers and even from my team, because it makes you grow up, take another perspective on things, and yes, at the end of the day, I think it's an improvement plan for yourself.
Thinking about the 80% and the 20% and asking feedback from your team and managers, I think. Yeah, I think the same question to you and some of the things you've put in place to address it.
Yeah, I think that you can learn from your own experience for sure. You can learn what you go through, and you can try to improve and then replicate that also to avoid that your team members are feeling the same way. That is one side of it, but I think you also learn a lot from observing others and observing your peers and observing other leaders. And I think one of the most important point is to learn how you listen well to people. I was in a meeting a very long time ago, and a former colleague of mine said something about, well, that person doesn't have anything to do in this meeting because, and it was a man, he never speaks up, he never says anything. And he never gives his opinion. And I said, well, the room is filled with people who have a lot to say. Do they say intelligent things? I'm not sure. But they talk a lot. And there's no room for people who maybe don't have the same voice and who don't have the same feeling or envy always to express themselves, because we're not alike. And actually that person is a totally brilliant person and who just doesn't have the capability of maybe speaking up unless the question is really asked. So asking people, what do you have to say to this? Do you have an opinion about this? And really listening when they also give the answers and not just go, okay, let's move on to the next one. So it's all about listening and making sure that everybody also expresses themselves. And I think when you've felt it yourself, that you don't necessarily dare asking the question because is it the right question to ask? That's where you become very conscious about also making sure that you listen and you make people ask the questions.
That's a great point, guys. Thanks for that. Catherine?
Yeah, I agree with everything that has been already said. So I would just add maybe 2 points. The first one is, and for me it has been very important, is you never have 100% of the skills. So you also need to rely on your teams and your ability to pick the right people with the right mindset, with the right skills, and to be part of the team and to fill that gap that you have. I will never be a cybersecurity expert, but I have a very, very strong person in my team where I know that if there is a topic, he will pick it. Same thing on infrastructure. I will never reach the level of knowledge and master of Robert that you know very well. So I never.
Robert,
so
you're in the room.
I can dream of it, but it will never happen.
Yeah.
But I know that I can trust a guy, and I know that he will pick up. And the second thing is when you feel that little syndrome coming behind your head. One recommendation: trust the people who put you in the situation. Because if a manager is putting you in a position, he's not stupid. He's doing it because he strongly believes that you can do it. So just trust. If you don't trust yourself, trust the manager who wants you to take that role that you think you can't do it. Because if he is doing it, he trusts you and he knows that you can do it. So just my 2 cents for today.
I love that advice, Catherine. Thank you so much. Louise?
Yes, absolutely. From my perspective, imposter syndrome is only a mismatch between your expectations and the deliverables. And to add on what has just been said, it happens to us a lot to be in rooms full of experts who master perfectly their topic. In my job, it happens a lot. And when it does, I'm not trying to be more technical than the experts. As was said, I just trust my teams. And also, I remain humble and curious. And having fresh pair of eyes often leads to questioning the status quo and coming up collectively with smarter approaches to tech and non-tech issues we're all trying to solve on a daily basis. And from my end, I always observed that tech is more social than we think. I tried many things in my career. I tried finance, public affairs, cabinet, entrepreneurship, even teaching. And tech was always a major component of each of these jobs. I think it's everywhere and that it's an integral part of everything we do.
That's great. And maybe, Mai-Lan, I'll finish with you on this question.
Well, when I asked the question, who in this room has ever felt an imposter syndrome, pretty much everyone in the room raised a hand. And for me, what that says is that we all do at different times. And you might think that the person that you work with that you admire so much because they're so technical or they're so good at some domain is beyond your skill set, but I'll bet you $1. That's my biggest bet, Julien. $1, okay? So I'll bet you $1 that person you think is so brilliant, I bet you that person feels like an imposter sometimes too. And so when you go into an environment or you talk to a team or you talk to a coworker, just keep that in the back of your head because sometimes that will help diminish your feelings of feeling like an imposter, but it can also help you invite the other person to work with you and the team in a different way. Sometimes the most brilliant technical people on a team are worried about their writing skills. They're worried about their social skills. They're worried about something that makes them feel like an imposter. And if you can understand where we all collectively have our strengths and our weaknesses, then we can help complement each other. And they will want you in the room with them because you make them more successful too.
That's extremely interesting. I think Valerie and Ia, you were alluding to it earlier, which is imposter syndrome can be used as a strength.
Yes.
It can be used as a way to include more people in the conversation, finding the experts, like you were saying, Catherine, the same way you were saying about having people that really know deeply around you. It makes you question yourself. Do you have examples, and maybe Valerie, I'll start with you. Do you have examples where you've used imposter syndrome to become better at your job?
Actually, as I said, I think it's exactly that. It's when you use this imposter syndrome, it's because you have listened, you have asked questions, you have a good team. And I think, for example, I had taken a job which is a specific one on system test with a lot of challenges, very difficult situation, different companies working on the same topic, very strict planning, for example. So many different things. And I think what really helped me is that as I didn't have all the competencies, and as I said before, I had identified that, I really looked and seek for people within my team who could really take the different position and really support that. And that is what we did. We built a very strong team, very diverse, actually, which is not so often. It's a team which is... there are more women in the team than men, so especially in this very operational and technical environment, it's quite a first, I would say. And they have performed, the team has performed so well that I think that now they are really recognized within the company. And for me, what is very important also is that I think they have become role model for any newcomer which can see this young woman having done something which was usually done by men, I have to say, and they have performed perfectly well. And so anybody now can think, yes, I can do it also.
So the ceiling is broken.
Yeah,
that's why examples are so important.
Yeah.
I think also, well, yeah, same question on using imposter syndrome as a strength.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, I think that the capability to empower your teams and making sure that when you are a leader, and I'm not only talking about being a manager, because there's a difference also between the two, but being a real leader today is, for me, to have a capability of also making sure that you are empowering your teams. So no, you don't have to be experts in all the domains. That's not part of my job today. I know that I don't have to be an expert in everything. I don't need to be aware of everything, even though I would like to. But it's not necessarily possible. So being able to trust your team and telling them also, I cannot be the expert in this domain. I cannot necessarily be the one who has all the details related to a topic, because we can talk about technical topics here, but it's actually any topic, whether it is managing the customer relationship, managing a difficult situation with a customer or partner, or whatever, it can be a technical topic, empowering your teams because you're being transparent with them, also telling them, I am not in a position today because I don't have your expertise in order to do this, but you do. And I am here to help you also for us to achieve the results that we're looking for. But being able to open up in that way and being very transparent with the teams and telling them also, this is something that I know that you're able to do. That's why you're in this job. So having conscious about our own barriers, and that everybody has barriers in some way, and at the same time making sure that your team evolves and you're empowering them to do the job, I think that's part of the benefits that can come out of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to change questions, Catherine, because I think we've talked about that one already. But at Amazon, we talk about owning our careers, and in the fact that we're responsible for our personal development. However, we need to seek help. And I know you've put some great things in place at Airbus in coaching and developing, and maybe you could share some of that with us.
Yep, sure. So what is common to all Airbus is you have to have a development plan. So, and as each and every employee need to look at his aspiration and identify the areas where he wants to learn, he wants to develop himself. So what we have done in my organization that was slightly different is that we made it absolutely mandatory. And if you don't have, so it has an impact on your bonus. So it's quite motivating people. And the second thing, but was not enough, because after 1 year we had only 60%. So what really worked was when I was asking the leaders and the managers of all the team to say, okay, now your team need to have 100% of development plans. And if not, it will impact your bonus, not the bonus of your employees. And suddenly it works. So we ended up with a group of 3,000 people in across the globe with development plans, except a few people who just decided that they were 1 year for retirement and that basically they were not that much interested in developing new skills on developments or stuff like that. The other thing that we have done is in the team is that the Friday afternoons are dedicated to your self-development. So there is no meaning. There is so it's really time for self-development and for training for doing projects. So some of the team members prefer to work on project to experiment new technologies, for example. So that's really the purpose of the Friday afternoon. So that's what we have started to put in place to make sure that everybody is taking ownership of what they want to become. And they can develop either on technical skill, but they can develop on language skills. They can develop on management skills. They can develop in communication. So it depends really, it's really their choice to decide what are the topics they want to develop. And then we give them some free time to do that training and to do that development.
That's great. Obviously, I'm so impressed by all of what you've achieved, and I think you were sharing, Louise, earlier about the different professional lives you've had, from being in consulting and merger and acquisitions, and then more politics, and with now what you do at Institut Montaigne. How have you managed your career throughout all of those stages?
Well, I think it's as we said before, right? It's always this match between your expectations, the deliverables, and trusting the people you work with. And thank you for sharing what you did in your companies. I think it's really insightful. And I wanted to add something also from a more macro perspective, is that to me, firms could benefit from being more proactive in getting the hidden talents I was mentioning back on the market. They could be perfect matches for new jobs that appear in tech, product development, UX, UI design, Scrum mastering, and so on. And we could do a long list here. And one thing I saw that was very, very useful during my study was the return to work programs from different firms, such as AWS. And I think this is really a good way to get those hidden talents back in the market, and that they should be more widespread in companies as well.
This is a great point. You, Mai-Lan, you've been a mentor and you've been a coach to many in AWS, including myself. So those have been some of the greatest moments for me here. So, but do you want to share some of what you do also with your teams? And you obviously have one of the largest engineering teams within AWS, and some of what you've put in place that I think would be really interesting.
Well, I think one of the hardest things to do is to scale a program. And really what they've done in Airbus, you talked about some techniques with some bonuses that help scale a program, but it's actually quite hard to scale a program and reach enough people at different stages of their career in a way that's meaningful. And I think one of the things that we try to do in Amazon, less than 1% of our engineering community is something called a principal engineer. These are our most senior engineers, and it goes principal, senior principal, distinguished engineer, which is an engineer with the rank of a vice president. And our engineering community, the principal engineering community, is some of the most influential people in Amazon. because they write code. All the way up to the distinguished engineer or distinguished scientist, these are engineers that are very hands-on with the technology. And so they're writing designs and they're writing code. They're in rooms of engineers. And they're designing things every day. They're some of the most knowledgeable people we have. If any of you are interested in reading a little bit more about what's going on in the minds of our principal engineering community, we have the Builders Library. The Builders Library are a set of articles, best practices, observations, lessons learned over time from our principal engineers. And so you'll have articles in there from a distinguished engineer named Colm, and he'll write about availability and all kinds of things that he's learned over the years. David Janacek is another principal engineer, senior principal engineer, who's got articles in there. And when you have a community that's super influential like that, one of the things that we do is we explain to them about imposter syndrome. Now, it's been a long time since these folks were early career engineers, but you explain imposter syndrome and they get it. They remember when they've had it. They might have had it last week when they were in a business meeting and they were the only technical person there. And when you say, okay, here's a thing, new employees feel it. It doesn't matter what their gender is. Women feel it. People, of another ethnicity feel it. And you ask them to ask the person in the room who's being so quiet for their opinion. And you ask them to change the atmosphere in the room. Then it scales. Because those engineers, they're in meetings that managers aren't in. And they're going to change the culture. And so really when you're looking at training and these programs that reach, I think what Airbus is doing is fantastic. And I think the other thing that we can do too is we can really make sure that we as a peer community are helping recognize imposter syndrome and invite others into the conversation that we're in, no matter what type of conversation it's.
Great. And I think, I looked at the clock earlier, it's at 20 and now it says 8. And so the timing goes really fast when we're talking about this. So we have 8 minutes left. I think I'm going to go in the other way now, because I was thinking, Valerie, you get no time to think about the questions I ask. It's not fair at all. And so therefore I'm going to go back this way now. And obviously breaking imposter syndrome is a key to the inclusion discussion we're having. What do you think is the role of AWS, Amazon, and any company out there in bringing the most from the talent and being inclusive? How do you see our role in that?
Well, I think every company has a responsibility to recognize how important it is to find the hidden talent that is everywhere in an organization. The way Amazon does it is we talk about empathy in our leadership principles, and we talk about how leaders have to lead with empathy, and we make it a requirement really to be a leader within the company. And I think every company, you can't just talk about it. You have to put it in a way that makes it part of your culture. And if you're going to do that in different ways in the Amazon world, it's by living up to our leadership principles. Every company has a responsibility to do that for themselves, for their employees, and for their products. AWS does it one way. The other way we do it is we talk about these topics here at the summit, right? Like part of this is putting people like the leaders that we have on the stage in front of the community here in Paris and share the lessons learned. So that's what we're doing as well. Okay,
great. Thank you so much. Any advice on, you had some numbers earlier in saying diverse companies perform better. I think everybody knows it now. Any advice for how companies can be more inclusive and what the role of a company in inclusivity is?
Yes, I'd like to end this really with a message. I think imposter syndrome hinders growth today, but can become a serious economic issue tomorrow if we don't do anything. And I believe we must go further than just saying put more female role models here. We have unprecedented levels of tensions in tech. 10% of tech jobs are not fulfilled today. And when we look at cybersecurity, this is 75% of jobs. despite compensation packages being very high. In France only, it is 85,000 jobs, and in Europe, it is 700,000 jobs. So I'd just like to end this by saying that a continent or a country that intends to play a major role in tomorrow's economy should at least be able to fill its tech job positions. And firms have a role to play, major one, by bringing more opportunities for cross-expertise collaborations, but also career progressions, and that we should be creative. In our report, we made several recommendations throughout the entire career life cycle, at school with partnerships, at university with hybrid curriculums, but also in firms with selected retraining programs. So imagination would be our only limit to tackle this issue.
And I really appreciate that, Louise. And I think we share some similar numbers. The study you talk about, we can find it on the Montaigne website, or?
Yes.
We can? Okay, awesome.
It is.
Because I think similarly to what you just said, this morning I was talking how we think there is a 99 billion opportunity between now and 2030 just from the use of Gen AI. But for that, we need to continue growing the adoption of Gen AI at 35% a year. And for that, we need 22 million trained people. And so anyway, let's all get a certification in cybersecurity, I think is what you're saying. Catherine, similarly, what are some of the role of Airbus within diversity?
So basically what we have done, and I think is working well, is really to set objectives for the company. So we have set objectives in terms of recruitment. So we want to recruit 33% of women for across all the roles. We have also objectives in the promotion of women to executive roles. So with also 33% executive, and all the executive positions are approved at executive committee level. And you cannot come to the executive committee if you have not considered at least one woman in your shortlist. So it's little tricks, if you want, that make people conscious of the fact that they have some bias, that they don't necessarily thought about some of the hidden talent in the organization for specific roles, and to put these objectives and these small rules in place. Basically, you significantly increase your population. And then it's a lot about leading by example. In digital today, when I joined, we had 18% of women in the organization. We are now at 26. I have 40% of my board, which are women. We have the 33% recruitment rule in place. By putting that in perspective to the entire organization, it makes digital a cool place to be, because you know that your diversity will be recognized by the organization, and that you will be given opportunities to grow your career. So that's a little things that we try to put in place to make that happen, and then it's about. But you talk about it. It's going to the college. It's going to the lycée, to the universities to promote tech. We need to do more of that, and it starts very young. So you need to break the mindset. Let's say when the kids are 6, 7, 8 years old, because if they consider at that time that digital is just for boys, basically you are already losing part of the pipeline of talent that we need in tech for the next decades.
Could not agree more. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there is. It's absolutely great to hear what Airbus is doing on their side, and the study. I mean, these numbers are a bit scary at the same time, but it's also it also shows that there is a great future in tech, and we absolutely need to do everything that we can for it. It has to be a combination of several things, and I think that what we're doing in IDEMIA, we're focusing on several things. Same thing in the recruitment process. There has to be a woman in the shortlist. The best person gets the job, obviously. but there has to be a woman in the process. We're pushing that to all of the teams. We do career weeks for people to understand what are the different jobs and positions that actually exist in the company. Because if you've been working in one domain all your life, you don't necessarily know what's going on the other side. And there is a lot of aspiration to change career paths and maybe move from a less tech role to a much more tech role. We need to find those opportunities and find the people who want to move in that direction, because we won't be able to fulfill all those tech jobs that are open today just by recruiting in the future whoever gets out of engineering school. That's not going to work, because there's just not enough people there. There's not enough diversity also. And even if it is a requirement, so it has to be a combination of everything. So having the company focus, as we're doing in IDEMIA with the recruitment process, the career weeks, talking about training managers and leaders on what does inclusive management mean. That's another thing that we have put in place. It's forcing people also to have thoughts about this, because as you were just saying, Mai-Lan, also, it's not because we talk about it that it's understood. Everybody can say, yeah, I know what it is. You know, I've heard about this, and then maybe I felt it a little bit also. Okay, but what do you actually do about it? How do you become better, and how do you make sure that your teams become better? And it doesn't matter what age you are and what stage you're at inside the company, you still need to work on it, and you have to work on it throughout all of your career. And the last point, which is related to the younger children out there in the schools, if we should ask a question to all the people in this room, or just ask one favor, because we can do a lot of things inside the companies, we can go and see the schools. Why don't you go and seek up the children that are either your own in their schools and talk about what tech means? It would help so much, because they really need it. They don't get this feedback from their teachers because they don't have the insights to what working in tech really means. And everybody can just spend an hour once in a while to go and explain in those school classes what this is already about. We're already doing a lot.
Well, thanks for that. Yeah, I think that's a great point. Valerie, I'll let you conclude as
Okay, thank you. I fully share what has been said. I think it's very important that the role of a company in ensuring this diversity. And there are several levels. I think most of them have already been explained. I can say also that there are some associations also, one to which I participate, which is Women in Space. And actually, it's actually exactly what you said, is to go to schools, college, and explain whatever job we are doing and how it can be so much interesting, and that it is a career that anybody, and especially women, can take and should embark on. Also, I believe that the more we have women in different positions, the more the people will have this model in their mind, and therefore can recognize themselves and see that it is possible also for them, and can be indeed probably quite interesting. And the last thing maybe I would like to say on this is that I also truly believe that I would not say it's coaching, but I think we have also within our own group, we have a lot of expert people. And usually these expert people, I feel they are very humble, and they're also very keen to share their experience, their knowledge with the young ones. And it's just, I think what we need to do is just to put them together, and it works usually so well whenever it is done. And this is very much encouraged within Ariane Group, because of course we need to pass this knowledge from one generation to the other. And I think it's also a way to to destroy this imposter syndrome.
Right. Mai-Lan, I was going to leave the departing words to you, but...
Well, I know I've learned quite a bit in this panel, and I think one of the common themes that I heard today from everyone is that if you feel like an imposter at any point, one of the greatest gifts that imposter syndrome gives you is a joy for learning. It's a curiosity. It's a need to go explore the dusty corners of what you don't know already. And so if you see it as a negative, if you see it as something that detracts from you in some way, I don't think you should think like that. I think what you're hearing today is just take that feeling and use it to develop the empathy, to talk to other people in your organization and see where they feel like an imposter, and also to use it to ask questions, to learn, and just to always be growing.
Great. Well, I think this is going to conclude our first roundtable on the topic. A huge thank you, Valerie, Iya, Catherine, Louise, Mai-Lan. Huge thank you. I think a big round of applause.